Of course Molly starts eating right now. Oh my gosh, Molly. Okay. Hey guys, welcome back to For He Who Is My Tea. Today we're going to do the long-awaited video that I said since my very first video that I wanted to do this video. And I'm finally here and I'm so excited for this, you guys. I feel like I'm a little slanted. I don't know why. Okay, well if I'm a little slanted, hi. It's fine. I'm so excited to do this video. I have such a passion for the story of John 4. It really is quite a story, so I'm excited to share with you guys my thoughts, experiences, and just do kind of like a Bible study. So I was planning on doing just a little summary of what John 4 says, but I decided I actually want to read it straight from the Bible because why not? Let's read the Bible on YouTube because it's good and it's powerful. So if you have your Bible, pull up John 4. We're going to read the first part because today is part 1. We're on this like part series, so we're going to do part 2 next week. Yeah, follow along. I'm going to read it from my Bible and I'll put the verses here so you can follow along on screen too if you don't have a Bible. But you guys, I know reading the Bible sometimes can be like ugh and boring, and that might be just how people see it as. But think of it as Susan's telling you a story. I'm telling you a story that I heard of and I want you to know. So imagine it in your head. Think about the details that are going to be said. Just like picture it in your head because it is a story and it happened. So John 4. Now when Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that Jesus was making and baptizing more disciples than John, although Jesus himself did not baptize but only his disciples, he left Judea and departed again for Galilee, and he had to pass through Samaria. So he came to a town of Samaria called Sychar, near the field that Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there. So Jesus, wearied as he was from his journey, was sitting beside the well. It was about the 6th hour. A woman from Samaria came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." For his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask for a drink from me, a woman of Samaria? For Jews have no dealings with Samaritans." Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." The woman said to him, "Sir, you have nothing to draw water with, and the well is deep. Where do you get that living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob? He gave us the well and drank from it himself, as did his sons and his livestock." Jesus said to her, "Everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks of the water that I will give him will never be thirsty again. The water that I will give him will become in him a spring of water welling up to eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I will not be thirsty or have to come here to draw water." Jesus said to her, "Go call your husband and come here." The woman answered him, "I have no husband." Jesus said to her, "You're right in saying I have no husband, for you have had 5 husbands, and the one you now have is not your husband. What you have said is true." The woman said to him, "Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, but you say that in Jerusalem is the place where people ought to worship." Jesus said to her, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But the hour is coming, and is now here, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father is seeking such people to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth." The woman said to him, "I know that Messiah is coming, he who is called Christ. When he comes, he will tell us all things." And Jesus said to her, "I who speak to you am he." So good. So that was the story. There's so much to unpack in this section. I actually have my notes right in front of me. I took a class, Gospel of John, and we dissected this chapter. We dissected all the chapters, but this one, I remember, was the one that had the biggest impact on my life. There's a lot to say about this chapter and these verses that we've read, but we're just gonna focus on one thing, and it's the word shame. because there's a theme here with shame. Before I get into the content though, I do want to mention how this story is very meaningful to me. I first was introduced to this story by my friend Joy Nagash. Now there's a lot of stories in the Bible. Keep in mind, I was never really into the Bible. I was just one of those Christians that went to church and that was it. Like, I didn't take my relationship with the Lord serious, and in that sense I didn't really read my Bible as much as I should have. But when I was a freshman in college back in 2013, I met a really awesome friend named Joy. She was the sweetest. I loved her and I definitely miss her. She was on a trip to India as a missionary with the missionary team, and she unfortunately passed away while she was in India. But John 4 is something that always reminds me of her, and this is why. I was told that while she was in India, a day before she passed away, she was at a women's event. I'm not sure what type of event, but I know there was a lot of Indian women that had come. But she was there and she just felt in her spirit to go up on stage, because there was like a little stage there, and start telling them the story of the Samaritan woman. And she did, and she was telling them how they are worthy and who they are in the eyes of Jesus and how they are loved, and just telling them that we might be the Samaritan woman, but we have Jesus who gives us grace and hope and joy and who shows up to us in our lives. But I think this story is so cool, and John 4 always reminds me of my sweet friend Joy Nagash. She's with the Lord now. She had the biggest passion for the Lord. She had the biggest passion for the injustices and God's people here on earth. And I know that had she stayed and the Lord not called her home, we would have been for sure lifelong friends. She really grew me and stretched me in ways that I could have never imagined. She taught me what true friendship means, what it means to be a good friend, and she taught me vulnerability, being vulnerable, and just sharing your weaknesses so that God can use them as strengths. Yeah, she was an awesome friend. I'm so grateful for her. But with that being said, that's what I wanted to share of John 4 is meaningful to me because of that, and because when I was learning this, it really, really impacted my life, because I think a lot of people can't relate to the Samaritan woman because we come from a really broken world, and there's a lot of evil and there's a lot of shame. And that's one thing I want to talk about, shame. Just the way Jesus approaches a Samaritan woman, the way Jesus talks to her, and the way Jesus is just so, I don't know, it's cool, guys. I like it. Real quick about shame culture, just like the theme of shame. I think in different cultures, there's some amount of shame. I'm going to speak personally in my Mexican culture because I'm Mexican. In my family particularly, I feel like there's some shame, and I don't say it as like they intentionally want to bring shame on me to make me feel like I'm the worst, but I think hidden in between certain things, there's shame. An example is my parents had very, very high standards of me. They had very high expectations of me. I had to always get good grades. I always had to behave. I could not go out. I could not drink. I could not do drugs. I could not have a boyfriend until I don't know when. Like, they were very, very strict. And I know they're coming from a protective heart. They just wanted to protect me. They made a lot of mistakes in their past, and they just didn't want me to commit the same ones. They weren't coming from the Bible because they weren't very true believers back then during my childhood, but they were coming from a protective heart. But with all that, there came some shame when I didn't live up to their expectations, when I didn't meet my grades, when I did disobey them, and there was shame that came with it. And I felt like I carried that shame with me up all the way up to college until I read John 4, and God healed me from so much, and God helped me forgive my parents for so much because there was a lot of shame that I was carrying. But that's just my experience, and that's why this book, this chapter, was so impactful to me, because I could 100% relate to it. So that was just a little thing I wanted to share about my experience and why this chapter is so meaningful to me. Now to get into the actual text. So if we go to the text, it says, he left Judea and departed again from Galilee, and he had to pass through Samaria. So he was leaving Judea because they were hunting him down, the Pharisees, and he wanted to go to Galilee. Now, the way geography, let me give you a quick geography lesson. Judea is down here. Samaria is right here. Galilee is up here. So Samaria is in the middle of Judea and Galilee. Jesus was trying to go from here to here. Jews and Samaritans hated each other. They literally could not stand each other. Jews were so annoyed of Samaritans that they would walk around Samaria to get to Galilee. They wouldn't even cross Samaria. They would go the long way and go around because they did not want to come in contact with them. They didn't want to talk to them. They didn't want anything to do with them because they were just not going to be friends with Samaritans. They just did not get along. Samaria was in the middle, but Jesus had to go through Samaria. That's what it says in verse 4. It says he had to pass through Samaria. So Jesus was already changing up the system that way because he was going to walk through Samaria. And keep in mind, he was going with his disciples. So I'm sure his disciples were like, are you kidding me, Jesus? Like, why are we going to go through Samaria? We can't even look at them. Like, no. But Jesus was like, nope, we're going through Samaria. I think this was like a divine appointment with the Samaritan woman because he just had to go through Samaria. Okay, second thing is that when Jesus was tired, he was sat next to the well, and it was about the 6th hour. I think the way they count down, I don't know how they count 6th hour, but I know it's around noon. It's like the peak of the day. This was the hottest part of the day. Women were the ones who would go get water to the well and bring it back home to their families. But women would go early in the morning when, one, the sun wasn't that hot, two, to make sure there was enough water for everyone. And this Samaritan woman decided to go right at the peak where basically nobody's out because it's way too hot. So this woman was basically, I would say, it was trying to like stay away from people. She was trying not to communicate with people, and she was just trying to be on her own type thing. So I think that says something of who she is and where she comes from. Another thing is that Jesus asks her for some water. The fact that he wants to share a cup of water with this Samaritan woman who they don't even look at. Jews and Samaritans don't even look at each other. And the fact that he wanted to share a cup with her, it's already like, Jesus. It's so radical, it's so different, and it's so crazy, but that's what Jesus did. The way he came to earth was crazy. The way he died was crazy. The way he resurrected was crazy. Like, his whole life was a crazy story, and it's so powerful because it should talk to us of how we should live as Christians. Loving people that don't deserve to be loved, praying for people that don't deserve to be prayed for, having compassion towards people that don't get compassion and don't deserve compassion. That's the kind of people that we should be. So Jesus was willing to share a cup with her. Then he goes, bring your husband. And she goes, I don't have a husband. And Jesus goes, you're right, you had 5, and the one you're with right now doesn't even want to be your husband. So you're right, you don't have a husband. And she's like, oh, are you a prophet? How do you know that about me? So first of all, let's talk about who she is as a woman. So this is how my professor talked about it. She was that woman in that city. Everybody knew she was sleeping around with everyone. Everybody knew that she was this woman that didn't have respect for herself and just was doing whatever the heck she wanted type person. Because in the culture back then, if you lost your sexuality once, then you just lost it completely. You don't ever get it back. You're just damaged goods. That's how it was in the culture back then. That nobody's gonna want you because you're just damaged goods. You've been sleeping around everywhere, so nobody wants you. And that's the kind of reputation she had for herself to the people around her. That's who she was. That's what she was known for. So you guys, Jesus showed up and was like, okay, so they go through that whole husband thing. But then she brings up the Messiah, the Christ, that they've all been promised that he's gonna come. He reveals himself to her. This is my favorite verse because when Jesus reveals himself to you, it's the most life-changing moment in your life. There's many moments where he shows up in your life, and I've had a couple. And that's why I think this verse is so important to me, because he does show up and reveal himself to you. You just have to be there. He says to her in verse 26, Jesus said to her, I who speak to you am he. Boom, drop the mic, drop everything. This is where everything's just like, what? That's the Messiah? What? It's crazy. So the fact that this lady is full of shame, she has been sleeping around, she went at the middle of the day because she didn't want to be seen by people. She just was that woman in that city, and the fact that Jesus was like, you know what, I'm going to reveal myself to you. You know what, we're going to have a conversation, and I'm going to tell you about the living water. I'm going to tell you about worship in spirit and truth, and I'm going to tell you I am the Messiah. I am here, and I am here for you. I am here for others, and I am here to change this whole system. I'm here to change this whole world, and I am here for you. This applies to you because a you watching this video is a divine appointment with Jesus. Jesus wants you to believe and trust in him because he went to the cross thinking about you. And he is here to remove your backpack of shame because you don't have to live like that. And I'm telling you from experience, there's still things that I struggle with. It doesn't mean it's going to be the easiest life in the world, but it does mean there's going to be joy that comes with it. There's going to be peace. And there's going to be so much goodness that comes from the bad that's in this world. It's good, you guys. So I, 10 out of 10, recommend you to just sit with these verses and pray to God, just you and God. It's not the same if you're just watching this video and just thinking that's it. Like there has to be an intentional time between you and God. Yeah, that's all I have to say for now because there's more that's to come next week. All right, John 4, part 2, next week. Stay tuned. I love you guys. Comment down prayer request and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!